Why buy a ladder when you can build one better for half the price? In this video, I'm going to show you how I turned raw Unistrut into a custom side ladder for our transit van. Why Unistrut? Because it's strong, modular, and this ladder is different, which I think is super awesome. Right now, I'm showing you how I built this ladder from scratch. I'm Dylan, welcome to DIY Overdrive. Be sure to stay till the end because I've got some extra thoughts that I want to share with you, so stick around. But for now, let's jump right in. Before you even think about asking the question, why did I choose Unistrut for something like this? Take a look at my roof rack video that I put out just before this ladder video. I explain everything that I love about Unistrut in that. Why did I put the rungs on the outside? Well, a couple reasons. I'm a little bit lazy and it's easier to just chop them all up at roughly the same size and bolt them on to the front, and I can always change them as I go if I feel like repurposing anything, adding or removing, bolting things to it. It's just, I love being modular and being able to change things as I go. So part two to that is it gives you a lot more toe room. The main rails can be close to the vehicle, but more toe room, so it's a little more comfortable for your feet as you're going up the ladder. In preparation to mount the Featherlight rooftop tent and hopefully some cargo boxes before our trip next month, it's time to build the ladder. So I grabbed my Unistrut sticks and some spare pieces from the bin and brackets, and I start figuring out ways that I can mount something like this to the roof rack and to the bottom of the van. The trick is to get up and over the side panel without interfering with what will be the floor of the tent, and remaining strong enough that it will support the weight of the ladder on bumpy roads for a long time, and also for the body weight of us going up and down it. Thankfully, I've got lots of spare pieces so that I can kind of figure this out as I go, so that I can share it with you, so you don't have to figure it out the way I did. So after grabbing the U-brackets and making a couple spacers, how I can do exactly this: get up and over the rail, make it low enough to sit under the tent, and strong enough to support the ladder. I'll be welding parts of this together, but in theory, you really could bolt all of this together, every piece of it in the whole video. You could bolt together using straight brackets, right angles, all this kind of stuff. After doing some measurement and figuring out exactly how long these sticks need to stick out over the edge of the van, I go over to my Evolution miter saw, which is by far one of my favorite tools of all time. It cuts steel so quick and easy. It's unbelievable, really. I've had mine for, well, this one's new, but I've used Evolution saws for years, so if you haven't seen them before, go check them out. They are well worth it. Please always be sure to clean off galvanized coatings before you do any welding, and please wear a mask, or even better, a respirator if you have one, or consider getting a respirator before you ever weld on galvanized steel. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do things, but I wouldn't feel right if I didn't say it out loud. Fumes from welding galvanized steel can be extremely bad for you. So like I said, use protection and please be in a well-ventilated area. While I'm doing all of this and figuring out ways to mount things and how I'm going to shape some of the metal, I want you to remember that the concepts of this video will apply to basically any ladder design or any ladder that you need to put on any vehicle, because a lot of the thought processes are the same. You need to think about a top mount, bottom mount, maybe a middle mount. It depends all on what the application is and what material you're using on what vehicle. So again, if you're going to do a similar design as I am right now, you could bolt this piece of shallow Unistrut onto the U bracket that I'm about to weld it to. I'm going to be welding it because I have the welder, I can, but again, you could bolt this. I'm not a pro welder, but this will hold. You can see some of that white powdery looking stuff. That is some of where the galvanized coating got burned. Again, wear breathing protection when you're scraping that clean before painting. Under the transit van by the rear axle, there's a couple convenient spots on this bracket here where you can bolt things to. So I grabbed a couple L brackets that are designed for Unistrut, bolted them on, and then found a couple other places where I could drill and use riv nuts to add a couple more brackets. These brackets will hold a piece of Unistrut that, again, I'll cut with my amazing Evolution saw, then bring it back over to continue mocking it all up. Keep in mind that any Unistrut or Unistrut brackets that you cut or grind, clean, anything like that, when you remove the galvanized coating, you make it susceptible to rust. So anything that's cut or ground, remember, needs to be painted. With the lower mounting piece bolted on to the two main brackets, I'm able to mock up the location for the other brackets that I'm going to add using riv nuts. One of the brackets worked perfectly in the location that I mocked it up underneath, but one of them I had to drill an extra hole to make sure it was in the right spot so I could use it and rely on it. After some drilling, some cutting, some grinding and cleaning, it's time to drill through the body of the van. Now, if you do this type of a thing on another vehicle, make sure where you're drilling through has enough space that you can drill through there, get the tool in there for the riv nuts, and also have room to thread the bolt in without too much of it sticking out that you're going to push into sheet metal on the other side. You can kind of tell that I'm drilling into what's sort of a chamber in the body. Also, be sure anywhere that you drill in the body, you're going to need to paint it or coat it, do something for rust prevention. A lot of people know about riv nuts already, but not everyone knows about this awesome tool. If you're going to be doing a lot of riv nuts in your DIY future, I highly recommend this. It came recommended to me by a good friend, Chad Schreiber from Schreiber Automotive, who is an epic installer. This guy's an absolute pro. He's always in the top 50 installers. I can't say enough good things about him. Anyway, this is one of the cooler tools that he has recommended to me that I use all the time, and it saves a lot of money. There's an affiliate link in the description below that will help me out a lot because I get a small cut if you use my link, and it's really a big part of what helps keep this channel alive. So thank you to everyone who does use those links. With about amount painted and bolted on, I'm ready to start mocking up the main rails. Now, I wanted the Unistrut on the side, the main rails, to follow the curvature of the van somewhat. So it's just outside of the frame, but I placed a piece of wood on the ground that was about the same height as the bottom of the van, so I could set a piece of Unistrut there and just mark spots where I thought that it could use a bend. The concept here is to make all these marks and then do many straight cuts through most of the Unistrut to make it easy to bend it and then re-weld it into that curved shape. After marking up the first piece, I transfer all the markings over to the other piece, then start cutting. After all these cuts, I put my foot on it and the Unistrut bends like it's rubber. It doesn't surprise me, but it really is always satisfying to bend metal in this way when it's so easy. Again, I'm grinding anywhere that I'm going to weld before I do to make sure I remove as much of the galvanized coating as possible to keep myself safe. Although this does not mean that it will eliminate all of the galvanized coating. Someone once told me that it's actually inside the metal and it's also on the other side of the steel on the inside of the channel where you can't really get to grind. I also saw some people say that you can use vinegar to help dissolve away the coatings, but that's not always an option on a big piece like this. Now, I didn't realize it was warping quite so much. I thought that maybe tacking it in place would help, but in hindsight, I would have reduced the bends a little bit after realizing later on how you can actually see in this video, the heat is warping the metal quite a lot and increasing the curvature way more than I anticipated. So I weld all the cuts shut, grind it clean, and check it again. I ended up going back and doing some recuts and re-welding to fine-tune the curvature better to the van. And at some point, I just got kind of tired of it, so I stopped. And it's not totally perfect in the end, but it's a DIY project. It's going to work really well, and I'm honestly happy with the way that this whole thing turned out. With the main rails cut and welded, I'm ready to start cutting some of the horizontal rungs for the ladder so that I can mock up the mounts at the top and on the main rails, make sure everything's positioned correctly. I cut my ladder rungs at 16 inches. I mean, you could pick any size you really want. I saw some ladders online that were 10 inches wide and some that were 12 or 15, 16, whatever. I chose my rungs 16 so that I have plenty of width. Even though my main rails were going to be a little more narrow than that, it's still more foot space overall. To get the spacing just right, I bolt one of the mock-up rungs to the top mounts. I did my best to position them where I think I want them based on where the main rails are going to hang straight down. I ended up having to adjust this a little bit later on, but I got it pretty close right here, just using the measuring tape and doing a lot of it by eye, actually. The main rails that go vertically are going to use right angle brackets. Well, I'm going to bend the brackets, but they're going to use those brackets to bolt onto these horizontal rails that bolt onto the bottom mount. That was a mouthful, I'm sorry. But these bottom mounts I'm mocking up right now so that I know where to cut them to shorten them later, and also so I can mock up the positioning of the main rails. I got these right angle brackets on Amazon for a fraction of what they cost at Lowe's and Home Depot. These ones are a little bit thinner than the ones at the store, but you could get thicker ones on Amazon. It's just, like I said, I'm a little bit budget minded, and these are plenty strong enough. I've used them a lot already, so I know they're going to do the job well. After bending those brackets out a little bit, I bolt them on for mocking up the position of the main rail and also to check that my angle is correct. I bolt a couple of horizontal rungs on just for a mock-up to make sure the ladder stays straight as I set it up there. So far, it's looking really good as I carefully set the ladder up here. And actually, those main rails that go vertically, one of the holes in a main rail sat perfectly on that top mount. So I was able to set it there and walk away while I grab the marker, come back, make sure that I'm holding it in the correct position, then marking where the mount is up at the top on the main rail, so I know where to cut the main rail. So I grab my little Makita circular saw with a metal cut blade. I do have an amazing Evolution saw that's a little big for something like this. So these little blades, these metal cut blades that you can put on a regular skill saw, work pretty well. There's just some heavier duty projects where you really want something like a proper metal cutting saw with the correct RPMs and whatnot from Evolution. I'll link these saw blades, though, that go on any skill saw below, again, in my affiliate link, because for some things, these saw blades work really well for cutting metal. Now I bolt on 2 more brackets to the main rails and start prepping everything for paint. Anywhere that you used heat or did any welding, you're going to want to scrape it good and clean to make sure that your paint is actually able to stick to the source material instead of just to the galvanized, flaky, powdery stuff that sits on top. And also any of that brown residue from the welding gas, you're going to want to get all of that off. So grab yourself a steel or brass brush to scrape it clean. Yes, I painted everything on this ladder and even the whole roof rack and basically everything I do with Rust-Oleum Satin Canyon Black. That's the name of the black that I use is Canyon Black. I found that it works pretty well for most things. If I had more budget, then I would take it all to get powder coated, but I'm trying to just get things done and on the budget I can. Maybe someday when the channel's bigger and I've got some money flowing, I'll start powder coating things so they last forever. I painted everything on my 4Runner roof rack, and so I touch it up every once in a while, big deal. This is quick and easy. I can pick it up at the store and give it another little spritz as I go every year or two. I'm only showing 1 coat of paint on one side of the pieces because nobody wants to sit and watch me paint for 10 minutes. So what I did is I did 2 coats on one side and then flipped them over and did 3 or 4 coats on the sides that will end up being visible once everything's installed. Also, I have this really cool handle that goes on any paint can. I'll link it below, but it makes it so that you're pulling a trigger instead of using your finger on the nozzle, and it will really save your hand if you're doing a lot of painting. I'm using 1/2-inch hardware up top, and these Unistrut T-nuts don't fit in the shallow strut with the little curly Q tail on it if you buy the ones that have the spring, so I just pulled that piece off for the T-nuts that go in the top. With the paint all cured, it's time to bolt everything together. This is always that exciting part of a project where you can see it all really starting to come together. You maybe see some of your flaws as you go, just like I did as I'm looking at the curves and how I could have done a better job or done it slightly different next time. But that's what DIY and projects are all about. It's doing the best with what you got and not letting anything stop you from completing a project. And sometimes knowing where to stop so that you don't get stuck in the paralysis of trying to make everything absolutely perfect your first time around. I'm not a pro welder. I'm just using what little skill I have to make things and do my best job that I can at that. I got these cool end caps for the Unistrut on Amazon, and while they haven't fallen off on the roof rack yet, I wanted to be extra sure that they were going to stay on, so I added a little bit of E6000 adhesive to make sure they're going to really stay on there for good. A moment ago, I mentioned the Unistrut T-nuts or channel nuts that have the spring on the back. There's always either a spring or the blue nylon, like what you see me cutting here. It's what helps keep the channel nut in place while you're bolting things together. The reason I'm cutting them is so that you don't see these tabs sticking up above and below the rungs of the ladder. Now comes the marathon of bolting all of the ladder rungs on. I tell you what, it's a lot less work sitting here and watching it happen than it is to actually be doing it. When you're sitting there and measuring and trying to make it perfect and then it still ends up a little bit off because you're just a guy doing stuff in your backyard, it can get a little tiring. But watching this come together is so cool. And, you know, when Micah came up, she wasn't really a fan. I do mention that in just a second here, but she wasn't a fan of how you could actually see through the Unistrut. So I'm considering getting some push-in covers that will actually close up. I think they're called closure strips. I will link that below also to a couple options, but they push on and basically close the top of the Unistrut so it doesn't look like you're looking into a channel. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind it, but Micah doesn't like it, so we'll see. Maybe I'll make another video of adding that on later. One aspect that needs to be addressed about this ladder is the way that it looks. I explained why I put these on the outside. I explained why I used Unistrut, but at the end of the day, it does look different. Not quite as sleek as some of your store-bought van ladders, but I think that's pretty cool myself. I like being different. I like things being usable, and even if that means they're less pretty, I like being able to adjust and change things as I go for any purpose. I will say when Micah saw it the first time, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, it looks so amazing. It was more like, oh, okay. All right. Well, you did a good job. I'm not kidding. That's exactly what she said. She was like, not really that stoked, but whatever, she'll get used to it. That being said, the next part that I want to address is weight. This is going to be more heavier. This is going to be heavier than one of your store-bought aluminum ladders, and that's definitely something, I don't know that I would call it as much a concern as much as just a fact. It's a reality. I'll keep an eye on all the bracketry, nuts and bolts and everything as this ages. It would be nice if it was lighter. You can buy aluminum Unistrut. I actually did use aluminum Unistrut on the Suburban roof rack. The reason I didn't for any of this is because, again, budget. I got 15/6 of Unistrut for 150 bucks on Marketplace, so it was kind of hard to beat the price of this whole setup. I really can't afford to buy a new strut right now because this stuff is getting kind of expensive. It's becoming an expensive hobby if you buy new, but still affordable if you can find it used, which usually you can. Just keep an eye out. And the third point is, dude, you could unbolt this thing and hang it on some posts and turn it into monkey bars. I mean, it's like 1, 2, 3. It's like 8 bolts. I could totally do that. My girls would love it. Oh yeah, girl dad. My buddy's wife, who's also my buddy, so buddy Et, got me this shirt. I'll put it in the link below if you're interested in getting one like this yourself. I always get comments on it. I'm a proud girl dad. If you're watching this video 6 months from the time it's released, not even, like 3 or 4 months. Anyway, then I will be a proud dad of baby girl number 4. 4 girls, so I love it. It's great. It's the best part of life. So thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. And if there's any of the hardware that you see here that you want to find on Amazon yourself, I'll post it in the link below. And again, by far the best way that you can support my channel is by using the affiliate links. I get a small cut, but it helps keep this all going, keep it alive, so I can keep sharing cool ideas with you. Again, thank you so much. I'm Dylan from DIY Overdrive. See you on the next one. I'm Dylan from DIY Overdrive.